Okay, think about this. Tonight, when it gets dark, you're probably just gonna flip a switch and boom, light floods the room. You won't even think about it. But that one tiny act separates you from pretty much every human who has ever lived. See, for most of history, when the sun went down, that was it. Total darkness. So, what on earth did our ancestors actually do with half of their lives?
Right? Our nights are, for scrolling through our phones, binging a new show, maybe making a questionable trip to the fridge for a snack. Their nights? Well, their nights were mostly about trying not to become a late night snack for a leopard. It was a world of absolute, terrifying, pitch black darkness, a reality that's kind of hard for us to even wrap our heads around. And this wasn't just some short phase in our history. We're talking 99.9% of human history. Every single one of your ancestors spent about half their life in near total darkness. They didn't have candles, they didn't have lanterns. For hundreds of thousands of years, there was just the night sky, the stars, and whatever little fire they could manage to keep going. Which, brings us to the big question. What do they actually do with all that time? When you literally can't see your hand in front of your face, how do you fill all those long, dark hours? The answer, it turns out, is going to change how you think about everything, from sleep to stories to the very evolution of the human mind itself.
So, the first part of the answer, and it's a big one, is fire. You gotta understand, this was humanity's first great technological leap. It was the original killer app, and it was about to completely change the game for our entire species.
Let's just start with the most obvious and, frankly, most important benefit. Fire stopped you from getting eaten. Simple as that. Our eyes are pretty useless in the dark, but the eyes of the things that hunted us, like leopards and hyenas, they worked just fine. Fire completely flipped that script.
A campfire creates this little bubble of safety, about 30 feet across. Inside that circle of light and warmth, predators just won't come. But outside that circle, yeah, you don't go outside the circle. Anthropologists have even seen that in modern hunter-gatherer groups. Anyone who wanders away from the fire at night is way, way more likely to end up on the menu.
But look, as critical as not dying is, and it wasn't even fire's most profound gift. Safety was just the beginning. The real revolution was something much more fundamental, something that would change our brains. Here it is, fire didn't just make the night safer. It literally created usable time where none existed before. Think about it. Before fire, your day ended at sunset. You'd find a cave, climb a tree, and just wait for morning to come. But with a campfire, suddenly, the day got a whole lot longer. We're talking about an extra 2 to 4 hours of usable time every single day. Now, that might not sound like a ton, but you have to imagine this compounding over thousands of generations. Those extra hours around the fire didn't just change our schedule, they rewired our brains and built our cultures from the ground up. Which leads us to the next big question. What did we do with all this brand new time? Well, we basically invented prime time. This is where the real magic happens. This is where we became, well, us. So this anthropologist, Polly Wesner, did this amazing study where she just recorded what the Juhanzi people talked about. And what she found was that daytime conversation was almost all business. About 80% of it was just pure logistics. Who's hunting where, which berries are ripe, the boring admin of survival. But at night, around the fire, the conversation did a complete 180. A whopping 81% of their talk was all about stories, myths, jokes, and of course, gossip. You see the switch? Daytime was for surviving. The fire-lit night, that was for connecting, for imagining, and for becoming human. Just think about what that means for a second. The campfire was our very first theater, our first classroom, and our first church, all rolled into one. It's where we learned to think about things beyond this immediate moment, where we crafted myths about who we are, and where we shared laughter as a community. It's literally where we became us. But storytelling was only one part of this whole revolution. There was something else going on in the darkness, a biological rhythm that we have almost completely forgotten about. And here's the kicker. You were not designed to sleep the way you do now. A historian named Roger Eckerch spent years digging through old diaries, court records, all sorts of ancient documents, and he kept finding hundreds of references to something called first sleep and second sleep. It turns out this was the norm for thousands of years. People slept in 2 separate blocks. The pattern was actually pretty simple. You'd go to bed not long after dark, sleep for about 4 hours, and then you'd wake up for an hour or two. This period was called the watch. And then after that, you'd go back to sleep for another 4 hours. This wasn't insomnia. This was just how people slept.
So what did people do during this strange midnight hour? Oh, all kinds of things. They'd meditate, they'd think about their dreams while they were still fresh in their mind. They might quietly visit neighbors, have sex, or just lie there in the dark and think. It was this amazing period of quiet, calm consciousness.
And here's the wild part. Science totally backs this up. Back in the 90s, a psychiatrist named Thomas Ware ran an experiment where he just took away all artificial light from a group of people. And within a few weeks, every single one of them naturally fell back into this two-sleep pattern. Their brains were pumping out high levels of prolactin, creating this peaceful, meditative state of mind that most of us today have never, ever experienced. Okay, so if this world of campfire stories and second sleeps was so natural and so great, where did it all go? Well, the short answer is, we killed it. We conquered the night, and in the process, we didn't even realize what we were losing. And the change happened shockingly fast. It started with the first street lamps in the 1600s. Then came widespread gaslight in the 1800s. And then in 1879, the final knockout blow, the commercial light bulb. In just a few generations, the natural darkness that humans had known for 300,000 years was just gone. If you want to understand how different their world was, just look at the word curfew. It comes from the old French couvre-feu, which literally means cover the fire. A bell would ring telling everyone to put out their flames. It was a signal that the night didn't belong to us. It belonged to the darkness, a force you had to respect. Which brings us right back to today. You know, when you wake up at 2 a.m. and your mind is racing and you can't get back to sleep, we call that a disorder. We take pills for it. But what if it's not a malfunction? What if that's just your ancient biology, buried deep under centuries of artificial light, just trying to remember its natural rhythm?
We flooded the darkness with light, and we called it progress. But in getting rid of the shadows, we lost the culture of the campfire, we lost a unique state of peaceful consciousness. And maybe, just maybe, we lost a fundamental part of what it even means to be human. Kind of makes you think twice about flipping that switch, doesn't it?